And then we're going to go ahead and move on to the COVID grants. And that's going to be Ian. Then we're going to go to the websites updates. And I believe that that's going to be Saoirse. And then Dan to about the community displacement. So Stephen, if you want to go ahead and unmute yourself.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I think it would be appropriate for the LRAPA part of my report to be moved to the health and safety section, because Anand will have a motion for the board from health and safety on the LRAPA section of that. As far as the toxic fumes, it's actually toxic plume, and it is a request from the Health and Safety Committee to the Department of Environmental Quality to get the latest maps of the toxic groundwater plume coming from the rail yards. And we are exchanging communications with DEQ to figure out how to get that information without having to pay for it, either by going to their offices or by getting a fee waiver. And I will be proceeding with that on behalf of the Health and Safety Department. As far as the history project is concerned, we received a proposal from Dr. David Lewis to do a research project for us. We received his proposal in September last year. I don't know whether Ian got back to him, but I replied to him in April, and I got the impression that he thought he was probably giving up on us, because it's been 7 months since he sent a proposal to us. He's very happy that we are still active with that request for that research project. And after the board election, Dilenia let me know that the format of the contract proposal that we received from Dr. Lewis would be workable so long as we could resolve the issues that needed to be resolved to work for us. Specifically, price was agreed with him, the amount that we would pay for the research project. And there was also the need for the balance of the $3,000 that was approved by the board. The balance would be available to pay any costs of accessing particular research places. Like, we have fees that we would need to be to work with Lane County History Museum, which we know what they would be, but some of them it's in reserve for those possible fees for accessing research entities. The payment terms, I have made a proposal to him for that, but delivery date of the deliverables, the report from him also is being discussed. The only other area that needs to be finalized is the copyright terms. Normally when one is paying for research like this, it's work for hire and the person paying owns the copyright. However, in this particular case, we are paying for his services to do research, but we're also paying for tribal history, tribal knowledge. And it's going to be normal copyright language would be perilously close to cultural appropriation. So I am working out language with him that would satisfy the need for specifying copyright and avoiding issues of cultural appropriation. It's important to do this. I've attended workshops with how to work with tribal entities when dealing with things like this. Right now, he's swamped. He has 2 book deals that he's working on. And if we had jumped September last year, we would have got our place in line. At this point, we have probably now till September to work out the loose ends, and then he's hoping to be able to start in October. I've sent him a copy of the first draft of the write-up that I did for Skinner on about Eugene Skinner for the Human Rights Commission, and it's definitely of interest because this is a complete empty area for research. So that's kind of where that project is. It's ongoing. I've reestablished contact with him, and I should be able to bring the final agreed terms back to the board or back to Dilenia for approval, since you've already approved the appropriation for the contract. So I'm still working on it. I hope to have it done in time for him to start work when he has availability.
Thank you, Stephen. Does anybody have any questions for Stephen? Go ahead, Andrew.
Yeah, it's a quick question. Is DQ making you do a public records request for the toxic plume data?
Pretty much, yeah. And I did the request. They first of all stalled me by insisting they had a mailing address for the rail yards. That's largely because that's how they file their this type of information, by mailing address. I gave them the streets that surround the rail yards, and that seemed to allow them to find out where the rail yards were in Eugene. So I'm really dealing with a clerical level people asking question. I haven't really got to the guts of the process, but now the latest reply is substantive and telling us how we can get the information. So yeah, good question. It's definitely a system that they have before they allow information to get out, which is stupid because they're working for us. They are public employees, and information like this should be available. But I understand they do get pretty swamped with the need to handle information.
Yeah, just wanted to, I'm sure that you're aware, but if by off chance you're not, there is an exemption in the public records law. They are not required to, but they are able to produce records at no charge if it's generally in the public's interest, which I think this falls under. So I would continue to advocate for that.
Good. Yeah, I've put that request in specifically for that reason, and I pointed out that it can potentially lessen their workload because we may be able to answer the easy questions locally, and they won't necessarily have such a volume of contacts from the public. So I'm offering our help to them in addition, but also we have the rights to the information. Yeah, I've got a lot of experience with public records requests to other agencies elsewhere on the West Coast. Good point.
Ian, did you have a question?
Oh, I was just wondering if we were going to have time for other public comment after Stephen, but no, I didn't have any comments for Stephen.
Dennis, do you have a question?
Yeah, it's a question for Stephen. Stephen, you're British, and I'm just curious how you arrived in Eugene. You've been here a long time. I've seen you around. You obviously you're bought into the community. You're doing this history project. I'm curious what your personal history is, how you came to be in Eugene.
You're muted, Stephen.
I moved from California to Portland as like a climate refugee about 5 years ago, and then moved to Eugene, being a less intimidating, traffic-plagued place than Portland. We bought a place in the Whiteaker in January of 2019, and I've always been involved in local issues wherever I have lived, and my intent is to be of service to my community without necessarily taking on any of the responsibilities of being an elected member of any kind of body. So I'm a worker bee, and I'll do the grunt work and dig into stuff that needs to be dug into. On the history project, I worked on that for the Whiteaker for a couple of years, and then based on that, the Human Rights Commission asked me to do similar work for all the street names in Eugene, and we're presenting our first report from a subcommittee of the Human Rights Commission to the full Human Rights Commission next Tuesday, and that's going to be our first report on the first 16 or 17 street names that we have researched so far. I go to the Lane County History Museum every Thursday afternoon, reading old newspapers, old diaries, old letters, and becoming fascinated by the village that was Eugene in the 19th century.
Dan, did you have something?
I do have something that relates to Stephen's work, and it can just be my brief comment here. I was communicating with Annie, the head of Head Start in Lane County, who works out of Springfield, regarding the Whiteaker Community Center and the room today. And she mentioned as an afterthought that they are going to undertake renaming the Whiteaker School, and that they would like someone from the Whiteaker Community Council to weigh in on that. And of course, I thought Stephen would be the person to do that, or at least communicate with them regarding his research. And so at any point in the meeting, Stephen, and of course I have your number, we can communicate afterwards, and I can give you their contacts if you're interested in spearheading that, or at least representing us there.
If the board is willing to allow me to share the one-page summary of the dark and dirty deeds of John Whiteaker with them, that would be the very convenient way to transfer the information to them. However, I did that work for the board, and so I should probably ask the board's okay to share that with them.
I would love to see that.
Okay, I will. I have previously sent it to I think Ian and maybe Dilenia, so I'd be happy to send it to Dilenia, because I can't email the board. I will email it to Dilenia, and maybe she can pass it on to the board.
I can do that.
And then again, would you be interested in speaking with them, Stephen? Sorry to butt in.
I'd be willing to respond to communications. I wouldn't necessarily want to do a presentation or anything like that, but I'd be happy to give them the one pager and then field any questions that they might have.
Thank you.
Thanks for that good news, because we, as part of our project, we had a list of organizations that have the word Whiteaker in the name. There's half a dozen businesses that have Whiteaker in the name, as well as Head Start, and all of this is relevant for their brand image, particularly as the Whiteaker situation comes out as part of the Human Rights Commission information sharing.
Thank you, Stephen. And then up next is going to be Andrew.
Point of order, do we want to offer public comment to others before I go?
There will not be, Stephen had written in asking for the time in public comments. So that is the end of public comments.
I think I was talking with Dr. Weaver over the chat, and I think that she has an item for public comment. I know that she didn't write in ahead, but I'd hate, since she came, for not having an opportunity to speak.
Sorry about that, Dr. Weaver. Go ahead.
Oh, absolutely no worries. Hi, everyone. I'm Joe. I'll be quick. I've communicated with a few of you already via the earlier public health and safety subcommittee group, but I just wanted to introduce myself. I'm a professor at the UO, and I'm a medical anthropologist by training, which means I study and teach about the intersection of health and culture. And I'm in the process right now of starting a new project that's looking at sort of public perceptions and attitudes and ideas around how to fix the issues that we're currently facing in Eugene around homelessness. The project's going to work with various stakeholder groups, but one of the groups is neighborhood associations. And I'm really interested in talking with folks who are part of WCC, since this is something that you all are really actively engaged with. So I'm here basically to say hello, to put my email in the chat for anyone who would be willing to be interviewed in an anonymous fashion. And I imagine at most it would take an hour of your time, could be less, during a conversation where I'll just sort of ask you to tell me about your experience personally and also as part of WCC, and just as a Eugene resident coping with and thinking about questions around homelessness and housing insecurity. I'll leave it at that and just put my email in the chat now.
Thank you, Dr. Weaver. Go
Well, I
ahead,
guess
Andy.
that means I'm back on. So I don't have a presentation for you all. Just wanted to identify for the board that our contract with our bookkeeper is up at the end of the month. So this is kind of a last minute item, but we need to renew our contract with the bookkeeper, Drea. I know some folks have expressed maybe an interest in taking a look at our bookkeeping services, and I'm super open to doing that. But I think we need to do that in a on a timeline that's going to keep us working. And so Ian has identified for me $4,000 in our OHA grant that could fund the bookkeeper, Drea Garcia. I think she goes by Decentra Bookkeeping. $4,000 for a contract that would cover July through September. So it's at the end of September. And I will just say for anyone, I know some people expressed concerns about our bookkeeping services, and I would love for people to reach out to me and talk to me about their concerns if there are. But in the meantime, we need a bookkeeper. We have too much going on, and we cannot be without a bookkeeper. So I would like to have this board approve funding for a new contract for our bookkeeper through September.
Go ahead, Dennis.
Thanks, Andrew, for dealing with all of that. So what's wrong with our current bookkeeper? There were some issues that created some controversy. Some board members have expressed an interest in hearing what that was about. Is there a problem with Drea? And then the secondary question is, while you have $4,000 from an OHA grant to pay bookkeeping as an admin cost, do we not have a substantial amount of money in our general fund with which to pay that as an overhead, since it is an indirect, just organization wide? Is there money? Go ahead.
I was gonna say, Ian, if you want to respond about where the funding is coming from, my philosophy on it is we should spend our grants first. There is money to spend in the grant, and it will be going away at the end of the month if we do not spend it. So I think that it is to our advantage to spend this money, and September and beyond, we may have to fund the bookkeeper out of the general fund or other grants or some other funding source. But right now we have an opportunity to use the last little bit of grant money to fund our bookkeeping services. And I think it's also appropriate because the bookkeeper is primarily working on these grants right now. She does work generally, but most of our bookkeeping services are currently associated with the grants that would be paying for it. And so as we look at kind of what we're doing financially with other grants, or whether that's general fund, it might be more appropriate in the future to use those funding sources. And as for the first question, I would just like to say that I do not know what some of the issues are that some board members have with our bookkeeping services. I do not, as the new treasurer, I'll admit, see any issues. I think we're getting what we're paying for, and would like to keep this contract. But I will continue to urge board members who have concerns to reach out to me, because I might be missing something and I would love to hear what those concerns are. So if you have any concerns about the services that we're receiving for our bookkeeping contractor, I would love for you to reach out to me offline and we can talk about it. But in the meantime, I'm fairly insistent that we cannot go without a bookkeeper. That would be extremely irresponsible. So in my opinion, we need to do this. So I'm not sure if it's inappropriate for me to make a motion, but if it's not, I would like to move that we allocate $4,000 from our OHA grant to extend our bookkeeper's contract through September.
And I'd second that.
Ian, hold on, let Ian speak. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I'd love to make a friendly amendment. Jen beat me to the second on the motion. Damn you, Jen. Always second to motions. But yeah, so the friendly amendment that I wanted to make is that it's coming from the OHA grant for COVID-19 response for community-based organizations, because we're receiving 2 grants from OHA. One, of course, is technically a reimbursement, but we did receive $150,000 in advance from OHA for our FEMA reimbursement. So that's just a little small addendum to Andrew's motion. And also just a procedural piece too, is that like our other contracts, we send this proposed contract through September to our legal counsel for them to bless it before we execute it. And yeah, I just wanted to say that I had always identified this $4,000 in the OHA COVID-19 grant for community-based organizations as, you know, to Dennis's point, hey, can't we use general funds? You know, to Andrew's point, Dennis, I would just reiterate that I've been trying to be judicious in making sure that we've squirreled away our indirects so that future boards can really benefit from the tremendous amount of work that we've done as an organization and have a savings account so we can pay for things like a grant writer, right? So we can take shots on goal for other grants. But yeah, come post-September, we're going to have to, or not me, because I'm leaving the organization after June 30th, but y'all will have to, well, not leaving, but just not going to be on the board anymore. I would really encourage the board to think about some creative ways to pay for our overhead, our indirects through our existing grants. The FEMA grant, we could pay for a portion of Drea's salary or a bookkeeper salary or a financial analyst salary if they're working on a portion of their FTE for the grant. And so it gets a little bit more complex, but because this OHA COVID-19 grant for community-based organizations has the most encompassing language, and it does end on June the 30th, this would put us right up to snuff, leave us with about $7,700 in indirects left. And so, yeah, my friendly amendment was just to make sure that it's coming from the COVID-19 grant for community-based organizations, and that procedurally we send it off to Cordelia and the Center for Nonprofit Law.
Go ahead, Dennis.
Yeah, I wanted to mention, Ian, in relation to that exact grant that Dilenia forwarded me an email that she received a few days ago from the agency, and it said that your 2 things. It said your date for completing this grant has been extended until December 31st. And the second thing it said is that if you'd like more money to run more of a program, we'll give it to you. So apparently they're asking us if we want more money and an extension. So what are your thoughts on that?
So I kind of feel just like in the same way that I don't think that, no offense to our elders, that Supreme Court justices shouldn't be setting precedent for the lives of generations in the future. I, as a person who's leaving the board June 30th, I don't think that I should be, you know, kind of guiding the direction of the board. But I'll just tell you, as someone with opinions, I think the email was for the grant extension for our FEMA reimbursement from OHA that lasts until December 31st. So while it's a different grant still by OHA, I think that it does bring up a ton of salient points. And what I would encourage to the board is come up with like a battle plan for what maybe the next 6 months would look like. And really, it's unfortunate to say, Dennis, but I'm glad that Brad's here. He's like my, disease scientist, Jiminy Cricket on my shoulder. I think we should look to the World Track and Field Championships. Is how bad is Eugene going to get? How bad is the Whiteaker going to get? You know, we've been talking to our colleagues at Lane County Public Health, at Oregon Health Authority. Brad's smiling, so boom, that's 1 dot off of my WCC bingo. Yeah, I think that we really need to look to the World Track and Field Championships and judiciously remain in contact with our colleagues at OHA and at Lane County Public Health and maybe at the University of Oregon as well, to make sure if things really do go sideways and we see some pretty significant case spikes, hospitalizations, folks on ventilators, that we're able to move really quickly. And we do have a funding stream available so that we in our community, our businesses, our residents, particularly our most vulnerable residents that we've been targeting for the last, gosh, almost 2 years now, make sure to get the help that they need. So that's a long-winded way of saying wait and see, I think.
Did anybody else have anything on that? Dennis, did you have a question? Because you were in the queue. Yeah. Go ahead, Stephen.
Just a procedural question. You're talking about pots of money and grant funding. when the board approves funding, for example, for the history project, is there a system within the board to earmark those funds, knowing that that request for payment will be coming through subsequently? Is there an earmark system in the accounting?
I'll say in our grant tracking, yes. I'm not sure that we have the most robust budgeting system set up for the whole organization. I don't think we spend enough money for that necessarily to be a problem. Maybe it's something that we should address. But in this very specific instance, Ian has done a fantastic job, and I'm sure others have contributed to keeping track of our grant budgeting and making sure that money is not being double spent and that it's all eligible.
Great, good. I just didn't want an invoice to come in from Dr. Lewis and then me to have to go back to say, oh, sorry, we actually don't have any money.
I believe that was general funded, so I wouldn't
Yeah.
worry about that.
Okay, good.
That
Thank you.
had I believe that was already voted on and set aside.
Good. Thank you.
So was there a motion for Andrew's?
Jen has discussion, and I'll restate the motion so that we can make Claire's job easy.
Okay.
I just would like to know, Ian, if there's, are there any funds to help Whitaker in itself, even though we've done Whitaker help for the people and the public? Is there any funds available to help Whitaker heal as the Whitaker community from all that we have gone through during the COVID when we had our campers and everything else that was going on? It's a curiosity to me.
Dilenia, do you mind if I respond?
Go ahead.
Yeah, so I would say that, yeah, I think about this in two ways, and I feel like I might step on Anand and Dennis's toes, so please respectfully slap me on the wrist. But I've looked at the Oregon Health Authority partnership with Oregon Housing and Community Services, the COVID-19 emergency rental assistance grant that we've received as COVID recovery, right? And so in my mind, the conception of that grant was for COVID recovery versus the work that we've been doing is COVID response. It's hard to be able to manage a fire for generations when you're putting out and fighting a wildfire. So this emergency housing grant, I thought of as COVID recovery, but it's really up to whatever the board decides for that funds. But that's how I've looked at it. Kind of more broadly, Jen, I think your question touches on a lot of different points. So the city of Eugene received ARPA funding, the American Rescue Plan Act, which was the third COVID recovery from the federal government, to about the tune of $34 million. And the budget process for that has taken, the past 12, 18 months. You can look at budget committee meetings for how they
We seem to have lost Ian.
We have.
So I guess just in the interest
how
of,
they.
oh,
There you go.
sorry, Ian, we lost you. I was gonna move on, but finish your.
Yeah,
finish your
totally.
thought.
My computer cuts me off when I get long-winded, so that's actually a feature, not a bug. Yeah, so I was just going to say that, I would look to the city's budget for the ARPA dollars. And there might be some funds allocation to parks by the city of Eugene for ARPA funds specifically. I think we might be able to use.
So
Thank you.
thanks, Ian. I'm gonna restate the motion for Claire to make her life easy when we're recording this. So the motion is to appropriate $4,000 from our OHA community-based organization COVID-19 response grant and to forward to our attorney the contract for Decentra bookkeeping to extend that contract for the months of July, August, and September.
I'll second that. If you need one. That sounds like a proper motion to me.
And everybody raised their hand. If
Third.
it's a yes. whoever's on the iPhone, I don't know who you are, so I can't count your vote.
That's Marcus.
Oh, okay, Marcus. Thank you. Are there any no's? All right, the motion has passed, so we will send it to the attorney, the contract. And then next is going to be Ian.
Sweet. So I think that I'm going to get cut off a couple of times. So if you just smile and pretend like I'm talking, that works really well. I've got a quick slideshow because I feel it wouldn't be a Ian Grant presentation without one. So can y'all see the slide in front of you with the June 15th board meeting? You want to throw me a thumbs up if you can see it? Awesome. Okay, so two motions today, and this is for the CDC Foundation grant to build confidence in COVID-19 and seasonal influenza vaccines. So this is for two items tonight. One is for a contract, or to extend our contract with our current program manager, Doriandra Smith, for July and August at the rate that the board previously approved of $7,317.42 per month. And then request an additional, that should be $3,500, not $4,500 in paint if needed. And we'll get to these fun things in just a minute. So show me the money. I feel like that has been my slide, which I've owned. And Tom Cruise's stock has risen significantly with the release of Maverick. So I've been really prescient. I've been ahead of the curve really when it comes to Tom Cruise memes. So total for approval tonight is $17,034.84, $14,634.84 of which I'm proposing that we allocate for Doriandra Smith's salary on contract, of course, for July and August, and then an additional $3,400 in paint. The additional $3,400 in paint, we won't necessarily need to spend. I'm just asking that we increase the allocation if needed, and I'll get into that in just a second. So program manager, what would Doriandra do? She would manage the CDC Foundation grant. What's the CDC Foundation grant, you might ask? Well, I'll get to that in just a moment, including submitting reports for our current 3 grants, because I'm going away on June 30th. The COVID-19 grant for community-based organizations that we just talked about is one of them. We also have a FEMA reimbursement, and then the CDC Foundation grant, which I'll touch on in just a second. So the CDC Foundation grant, we submitted this last year. It was up to $75,000 we could request from the CDC Foundation, the Center for Disease Control Foundation. And the Center for Disease Control received some of those ARPA dollars, just like the city of Eugene did. And we decided to submit an audacious project. The CDC Foundation wanted to see if community-based organizations and small nonprofits like ours could use art, public art, as a way to increase vaccine confidence. So we put in a proposal and said, hey, we've got this art committee, the Whiteaker Community Art Team, that's been doing murals in our community with local artists, putting money back into the community from underrepresented artists for years now. Why don't you invest in us? And they did. And so we're going to do a series of murals. And these are all items that have been previously approved by the board, and we budgeted them and sent them off to the CDC Foundation, and they approved them. But this is for the new board members who might not have seen these numbers or know what this project is. So we're going to do 5 intersection murals at $5,000 a piece. The money for the program manager, we already put in there. We have crosswalk murals, and those crosswalk murals are not intersection murals. Well, intersection murals are, right in the middle of intersections, right? Crosswalks are the ways that you're crossing the street itself. We also have a free wall. That's a freestanding art wall that was approved by the city of Eugene, where anyone, that's right, anyone can paint murals at any time of the day. No hate speech, of course. So there are limits to what folks can put up there. But these artists in residencies would allow select artists to be able to do murals that talk about public health, right? And so what better way to talk about the intersection of public health, public safety, and community than at actual intersections themselves, at actual crosswalks, and at this free wall where it's in very close proximity to one of our camps for our unhoused neighbors in those Conestoga huts that's managed by community supported shelters. We also have a nominal amount of money that are going to supplies, about $4,427, which Doriandra has already budgeted out. And then we have a nominal amount of indirects. Indirects are, of course, the funds that it takes to keep the lights on, to make sure that we have the money managed. So that indirect we can kind of squirrel away for a rainy day, and the board can choose to use as it pleases. Doriandra, I'll pass it to you just in case you want to talk a little bit about the great work that you've been doing to manage this grant so far, and to make sure that our community partners are engaged, as well as the artists themselves. Maybe talk about the process that we use to select the artists too, just so members of the board know a little bit about all the work that you've done and just the amazing response we've gotten from the community.
Sure, thanks, Ian. So this is as you said, quite audacious project because at the time when we threw our hats into the ring with the city of Eugene, there really wasn't a policy that could quickly relate and accommodate this giant of a scale project. So essentially it was starting from scratch and creating a pilot program based on the needs of the city, which then parlayed into the work that WCAT, the community art team, worked on to gather, to go through, to choose 9 muralists that would be appropriate to this project. So then from then, those designs were submitted to the city, and I went through level after level where the city had to go through all the different stages of traffic safety related to also public art in the right of the way and engineering. So we were given a very huge criteria of what we needed to accomplish in a very small amount of time. I think one of the biggest hurdles was the lack of places that we could actually do these murals because of many subsets of reasons having to do with where utilities lay in streets or where the LTD bus lanes went. So working through all those hurdles was pretty phenomenal to come now to a place where we have 9 solid locations. And these murals have all gone now through all the different approval processes. So now we're working with Cordelia to get the contracts worked out. And these may be kind of a contract between the artist, city, and WCC, although that's still pending. So now I'm in the process of working through paint issues. We had supply chain problems and also just the strangeness of finding paint that has the correct porosity absorption and all these matters of getting paint to actually stay on the ground through inclement weather, whatnot. So through a really neat partnership with the placemaking group in the city repair project, which is up in Portland, they were sort of the pioneers of street murals. We've been able to get under the wing of sponsorship through Miller Paint. So we've got a radical discount now on a very high tech paint that's going to serve us well and stay on our streets here in the Whiteaker for a good time. So I'm working with them now. Next spot is I've invited all the artists to do a meet and greet for the next WCAT meeting. So we'll finally get to sit down and connect with those folks and learn about more their techniques and what they're going to need for the project. And then from then, I had everything project lined for June and July, but because of Oregon 22 and the various concerns of the city, we had to ask for an extension moving forward into August. So I've finalized that process. Dilenia signed off on the extension papers. So now we're good to go. And now the volunteer-based work begins, community organization, connecting artists to different folks in the community that are meaningful to them, and creating paint ambassador groups. And so now everything's going to get painted in August. The city just gave me approval yesterday that we'll have the first 3 weekends as paint dates. So yeah, it's huge. So I'm thrilled, and I'll keep you posted as we go.
Awesome. So we're going to get back to numbers in a second, but I thought it might be fun if we actually looked at some photographs, because it's been pretty abstract, talking about the project. But what I'd like to show you now is the fruit of our strategic vision and direction as a board, and the fruit of Doriandra's labor as our contractor and ambassador of both our neighborhood and of the council. So here are some actual murals that are going to be on the street. I won't go into each artist or why we selected them, but I just wanted to say as a broad framework, many of these artists are from underrepresented groups or underrepresented artists themselves, some of which are from the Whiteaker. So this one is going to be an intersection mural You see that V, it's not just for victory, but it's also one of the international symbols for the vaccine. Why many of the bears do not have pants, but one of the bears does have a pair of pants on, has been a lively discussion amongst the art team as we evaluated murals. Just another sense of what this is going to look like on the street. This one I particularly like. Acquired immunity. I don't think we have a lot of visualizations for what that looks like in the body, but I think this is a pretty interesting representation of that. It's one of our crosswalk murals. This one was chosen as one of the artists, and they also did the most recent license plate for the state of Oregon, so pretty well-known artists. And again, this is another representation of how mRNA vaccines work, so pretty cool. This artist, I don't think they were selected for a crosswalk, but I think they might have been selected for one of our free wall artists in residence, maybe. But they certainly submitted. So go ahead, Doriandra, if I'm coloring outside the lines.
Oh, no, it's okay. Yeah, I'm just, yeah, some of this is outdated, but
Totally.
yeah, correct, free wall artist.
Great. And so some of the artists who weren't selected for one of the intersections or murals were given slots to do our free wall temporary mural installations and workshop for the community so they could learn how to do some of these art practices. Here's another artist who I believe was selected for the free wall. Yep. They submitted to do these intersections as well. This one is one of my favorites. I like it because it's kind of got a square look to it. This is another great one of community members with arms on each other's shoulder, showing community immunity or herd immunity because each person is helping the one in front of them. This one has kind of a 70s feel to it. This one is another one that I'm particularly fond of just because of how the corners look. And I think that it's going to fit the color of our community. This one, Protected Together, is particularly attractive towards children. And it fits the Protected Together branding of one of our public health campaigns that we've been doing for more than a year and a half now. Now, I feel like everyone and anyone knows who Wade Love is in our community. And I think the astronauts in the International Space Station who are going to be able to see this from space are going to recognize Wade Love's artwork as well. But that's all to say that there's been a ton of interest from community artists who have been a part of our community for a long time, as well as underrepresented artists who are from historically marginalized communities and who are disproportionately underrepresented as artists. So this was not just an opportunity for us to be able to communicate our public health campaigns, communicate vaccine confidence, but also to provide economic incentives for some of our underrepresented artists to represent themselves in our community through art. So certainly fits the mission of WCAT. And I think it's a really fine example of some of the work that we've done to promote vaccine confidence in our community. So away from the fun photos, now back to the hard drill numbers. More paint, but only if needed. So we talked about Doriandra's contract for July and August. This additional $3,400 that she's proposing is in addition to the $4,427 that we already have allocated. Doriandra says that this is going to be enough, but just in case it isn't, we all know that supply chains are wreaking havoc globally. So if we, by some happenstance, there's an interdimensional gateway that opens in which an alien species sucks away paint, we're going to have an additional $3,400 to be able to call upon and draw down if we need to be able to have more paint. But I just am showing this spreadsheet to give you all a sense that Doriandra has been doing her own diligence and really being judicious to making sure that we stretch every dollar of our resources and that we make sure that all of our artists have the resources that they need to be able to put these amazing murals from thought into action. So as I ride off into the sunset, I just wanted to say that it's been a real pleasure to work with y'all. And although this is my last meeting, I am going to work with Dilenia, with Drea, with Doriandra, and with Andrew to make sure that we tie up our grant reports in neat little bows and that we have continuity with my absence and with the presence of new blood and with our previous contractors that come on contract again, because while I won't be on the board anymore, I'm really deeply committed to y'all's success and your commitment as a board to serve our neighborhood. So with that, I'd like to make 2 motions, and I think separating them into 2 motions would be better. And I'll start with the first motion that we approve a new contract for Doriandra Smith from the CDC Foundation grant for $14,634 for the months of July and August.
Are you seconding that, Dennis? Now you have a question? Go ahead.
Okay, I have a number of questions for you, Ian, regarding your presentation. I've been a little bit confused and concerned about the mural project. I note that the WCC paid a company called Winbrock in the last 2 years, and a very large component of that for the street mural project. So either they were involved in designing it or but as to what the breakdown in expenditures are, because the mural project I understood was being undertaken by Brent and Joe. And here we have 2 sets of budgets and 2 sets of payouts for what appears to be the same thing. And that is confusing. So I'm sure you can explain that. But question is, well, who created the mural project? And then also, how did you arrive at a salary level for Doriandra? And this is not a knock on her work, because I don't know Doriandra and I can't say that, but I can say that the amount of money that WCC is paying her is almost at the same level that I am being paid as a Department of Energy project manager, as a principal investigator. I do a hell of a lot more work than that for that amount of money. And so I'm just curious where that salary level was arrived at. And I think you mentioned that you derived that from someplace, Ian. So those are my questions. Who created the mural project? What is it about this apparent double funding? And then how did you come to Doriandra's salary?
So for the Brent and Joe, I'll pass it to Doriandra. For Doriandra's salary, we funded it. We looked at nonprofit program manager salaries for Doriandra's education level of experience in Eugene, Oregon. And so we came at a little below median. So the median salary is $89,619, and we decided to go a little bit below that. If you break her salary into 12 months, it'd be $87,809. And so, yeah, we've had this conversation before. Thanks for bringing it up again, Dennis, but we came to it based off of a salary.com analysis for what nonprofit program managers in Eugene, Oregon would be paid. But we also inculcated a fair few other variables like level of experience and education level into the analysis. And anyone can do this on salary.com. I think of one of your other questions about budget. So the budget was done in partnership with other members of WCAT over the course of a couple of months. We developed the budget project together, and I think you're a big proponent for the work of committees. So the work of the committees came together over the course of a couple of months, and we submitted the grant application with the blessing of the entirety of the board. And so I broke down how the budget was approved. So it was, yeah, I mean, like none of the website development stuff comes from the CDC Foundation grant. What I walked through with those different categories of the crosswalk murals, the intersection murals, the free wall artists in residence, the program manager salary, and the indirect costs and the supplies costs, that was the sum budget for this. And what I think that you're talking about is having the map feature integration into the website featuring the art walk and the murals, and that's Doriandra's bailiwick. So I'm hoping that Doriandra, I can put you on the spot and pass it to you to talk about the what we've done the past couple of years for Art Walk, how that ties to vaccine confidence in our vaccine work, and why it's important to have visibility for the murals. So Doriandra, if you're cool with that, I'll pass it to you.
Sure. So Brent and Joe's contract has been strictly related to website development. So Ian's correct. One of the things that I asked for.
Doriandra, could you start over? Your first few sentences were cut off and they were important.
Sure. Can you hear me okay? Okay. So Brent and Joe's contract from the very beginning since I've come on has simply been web development for the Whiteaker Community Council website. And so they have nothing to do with the murals or the pilot program with the city or any of that, except for one of the deliverables in the CTC grant, which I thought would be fabulous in terms of vaccine confidence and leaving a long-standing footprint of the project, would be for Brent and Joe to build for WCC a map of the murals, which would be an interactive map, similar to like when you are looking for real estate or, you know, these maps that will open up a little link that shows who made it, the artist, things about it. So that was approved by the board in the last budget grouping. And so that is part of their contract to develop that once the murals are painted.
Jen, did you have a question?
Me?
Okay.
Yes.
Didn't actually
I mean-
hear a lot of Doriandra's response because of the connection problems, so
Oh,
still confused.
Well, I do know that Brett and Joe's contract, they're just the web designers. So one of the things that Doriandra is talking about is the art project is completely different. Once she finishes or they finish their art project, then that's going to be put on the website as like a virtual map.
So they're just doing a virtual map of the murals.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Jen? And we're gonna have to kind of hurry it along
We
a little
didn't,
bit.
we didn't ever get an answer to who created the mural project.
So I thought that I answered, but it might have been a connection error. It was created by the DevCat committee. So I wrote the grant in partnership with the members of DevCat. I apologize, Dennis. I'm sure it's frustrating for your end, not being able to hear us.
Okay, I have to say that I'm very anxious about looking for anything tonight because it's again one put too fast and not enough specific detailed information is applied. And we made that mistake and it bit us in the butt. And I don't want to go there again and make a fast vote. I am disappointed with the website outcome. And I think we overpaid them and we shouldn't have. We should have listened to more detail. And then there's just a lot of things that were pushed through too quickly and we didn't have time to ponder and think things through and then make a vote on things. So it's not that I'm against it, it's just I don't feel comfortable voting on such a big issue so quickly. And on that point,
Jen, hold on one second. Just to let you know that that funding is about to run out. So the funding that he's talking about is something that's already allocated out of the CDC. Was it the CDC? Yeah. And that one's ending in July. So unfortunately, this does have to be a kind of today or no. Does anybody else have any questions? Derek, I thought, Dennis, go ahead.
wasn't finished.
Did you just say that?
I'm sorry.
Did you
Yeah,
did
let
you
me-
just say that the money in question that we're voting on tonight, right now, the motion that Ian just raised, that this money must be spent or it's going to go away? Did I just hear that?
Am I correct about that, Ian? Did I lose everybody?
I think you signed a grant extension for the CDC Foundation, but again, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I did.
I'm pretty distant. I just do like
Yeah.
the grant reports now. So I think that so I think that you and Doriandra, the money will go away just like any grant. You know, we sign a contract saying, hey, you're going to do this amount of stuff in this amount of time for this amount of money. So I'm pretty sure that y'all signed a grant extension, but I think it expires in August or something like that. And again, I don't look at the emails anymore. So I know that it's going to go away. I know that originally it was July. I don't know what new time it is, but also if we don't have a program manager for this very complex program, I don't know who else is going to do it. So
It was extended till August.
oh great, fantastic.
Yes, I did sign the paperwork to extend it till August. Jen, go ahead and finish.
Okay, so I'd like to know if there's any benefits that we get as a Whiteaker Community Council from us. Do we sponsor DubCap and what those benefits are for us?
There are I'm gonna have to make this quick, Jen, because we do have to move it along, but they are our subcommittee. They are a subcommittee. They're called the Whiteaker Community Art Team, and they are one of our subcommittees. Does anybody else have anything?
I'll also note that there are indirects in the grant. So if you don't find value in the project in and of itself, our organization does take an administrative fee from the grant.
Thank you for that.
All right. Did you want to continue with your motion?
Yeah, I guess I just, the same motion as it stands. And I'll go back that we design a new contract out of the CDC Foundation grant for Doriandra Smith to act as the program manager for the months of July and August for $14,634.84 at the rate that the board previously approved of $7,317.42 per month with approval from our legal counsel. So similar to our other contract for Drea, that we would draft this contract and send it to our legal counsel for review.
Pia, are you seconding the motion?
Yes,
Or-
I am. I would
Okay.
like to second it.
And let's take it for a vote. And all those against? Okay, that one passes.
Thanks so much. And then this next one's really,
I did abstain. Nobody asked if I abstained.
I saw that you abstained, Jen. Thank you.
I also
Sorry.
abstain.
And so did Dennis, yes.
and then the next motion I have is out of the CDC Foundation grant that we allocate another $3,400 if necessary for supplies. And so that could be for things like paint or for rollers, and that would be at the discretion of our program manager. Again, I don't foresee that we're going to need that, but I'd like our program manager to have the flexibility and the board support if necessary to increase the budget for that line item of up to $3,400 if needed.
I have a question on that.
Shoot,
And that's still coming out of that same grant, correct?
correct.
Thank you.
I'll second the motion.
Thank you, Andrew. And yeses? Any noes? And Jen is sustaining. Okay, and that motion passes. And it looks like we're just a little bit off track. But the next is, well, Saoirse is not here, but does Marcus or Thea have an update for the website committee?
I can tell you that I spoke with Saoirse last week,
Okay,
and we talked about the need for a place for board members to be able to communicate on topics instead of our email. She was looking into that. There are some free sites that are available.
Yeah.
What's
And
wrong,
then-
Dennis?
Sorry. I have a really good idea on that. I use GoDaddy to run my business website. And so I'm aware that you can, if the organization wanted to pay $600 or $800, you could call GoDaddy on the phone, purchase a membership, and then sit there for 3 hours with their techs and build the website that you want, that has all your forum business, all your records, tabs, anything you'd like to build. GoDaddy's guys will help you build it on the spot, and it'll cost you maybe $600 or $800, and you'll have it in a matter of hours. And so I'd like the organization, the website committee, to consider doing that instead of, it seems we're floundering around a little bit trying to find a hosting org or a way to do it properly. But I'm going to guess that GoDaddy's had this question before, and they know exactly how to throw that together for us.
if you guys
So
do
so
go
Dennis, I
in,
agree with you.
if you go in that direction, Thea, will you guys check if they have any like discounts or anything for nonprofits?
So I agree with Dennis. This is taking way too long. I would like it done last week. I too build websites, Dennis. And so Saoirse was checking in with the group because she uses a free site that actually creates a blog type format where you can put tabs in, and the health and safety or health and, I'm sorry, Anand, I just brain warped, but Anand's committee could be there. We can have the Art Dubcat have its own blog. We can have issues that come up where it's all private for board members to look at, comment, and we don't get 100 a week. And so I was talking with Saoirse about getting that done by the board meeting today. So I will send her a text and see where she is. Maybe she can let us know. But otherwise I will push again for that. But
So-
otherwise we could do it on our webpage as well. Marcus and I were discussing that.
Check on the email addresses because they were supposed to create new email addresses for us.
She did reach out to them and she was checking on the email addresses. So she
Okay.
is the contact with Brett and Joe. Didn't want to throw one more fly in the ointment. And but we do need a place that we can talk with each other that's not filling up our email boxes.
Thank you. Dennis, did you have something?
I have a question for the website committee. I'm not sure if you can see this. This is our mailer. Okay, and I'd like you to note that the parts that I have highlighted. So we have a charter, and the charter states the criteria for membership in the Whiteaker Community Council, and this is not what it says. Our charter says that those who live, work, and own property in Whiteaker are represented by the Whiteaker Community Council, and that we advocate for those people. Volunteers, there's been a debate for some years in the WCC about whether volunteers are included, and we decided to consider that historically, even back in the 1970s, when there certainly were volunteers in Whiteaker and at the Whiteaker Community Council, they chose, when they wrote their charter, to not include volunteers for a very good reason. And it's because volunteers from another community or another neighborhood could very easily take over your organization and you guys would be toast. All they got to do is bring 15 people to a meeting and then they will be sitting in your chairs instead of you. And so that's the reason that volunteers are not included in the WCC charter. And I would appreciate it if whoever wrote this would please edit this. I sent an email to Sarah Weiss about 6 or 8 weeks ago, and I asked her if she would tell the website people to please change this. And it's still there, but it's not only on the website, it's also in our own internal communications. So I'm just kind of curious, how did this come about and who wrote this copy? Does anybody know?
I believe that would have been, is that the latest one that you have there? The latest one was Claire, our secretary. I
Oh,
think.
okay. My
yeah.
concern is that somebody wrote this originally because they thought it was the correct way to do it or the correct thing to write. And it isn't. And I'm just kind of wondering where they got these, the ideas that they had when they wrote that. And I'm just curious just to ferret that out, that idea out, that volunteers actually are part of the Whiteaker Community Council. I'm just curious who wrote it, that's all.
So Dennis, that does need to get changed. We have a lot of things on the website that need to be changed that are incorrect. For Apple Bruns, Red Apple is not their Bruns Apple Market. And so I've asked Saoirse if we could get access in there to get it changed because they legally can't go by Red Apple, even though we all call them Red Apple. So that needs to get changed. And so I'll make sure that that gets changed as well, Dennis, about the volunteers.
Thea, to make changes, I'm sorry. To make changes, Thea, do you have to, go through a long, difficult process of contacting Brent and Joe or whoever's in charge of this and waiting for them to reply, and then it takes you 4 days to get anything? Is that how it is?
I'm hoping not. We're trying to get access to our own website to make our own changes. That is my goal. Could I see a hands from the board? Would that, you like that to be our goal, that the board is able to change? All right, that, hey, we're all on the same page. Woohoo!
Mark, first Jen, and then I believe Dan had something, and then Marcus. I saw your hand up. So it'll be Jen.
Yes,
Dan, and Mark.
thank you. I'm gonna agree with, oh God, I'm sorry. With Dennis, because I was there when that discussion was made at the time, and it should not be there anymore. And for the reasons that he spoke to, and I don't know, I'd like to know how, I know that you need time to make these changes with the website. I understand that, so we can get it done correctly. But I just like to know if there are things that we can change, such as taking the volunteers out and taking them out of our own mailer immediately.
Yeah, we could, I've made a note of that, and Claire's not here tonight, but I will talk to her and show her the charter and make sure. This is why it was really important. I sent the charter out even to our veterans, because I'd like them to go ahead and review it. It's a 2-page document, not hard to read. So let's all get on the same page. So I'll get with Claire on that for the flyer. And then I'm sure Thea and Marcus are both here, so they've got it for the other stuff.
Okay, and I also.
Dan, did you have something? Hold on, Jen, I'm sorry. Dan? You're muted, Dan.
I had nothing to add. I was just raising my hand for the prior motion.
Gotcha. Go ahead, Jen.
Yes, and if we have time at the, before it's 9 o'clock, I'd like to ask some follow-up questions that I didn't get to a chance to ask because I was cut off.
Okay. And then I believe, Marcus, did you have a question? Marcus? No?
Sorry, I was just raising my hand initially for Thea's motion. That said, no, but I would love a better way to communicate that didn't, involve email. So Thea, Saoirse, and I will keep working on it. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. I really appreciate you guys taking this on too. This is a big one off my plate. All right, so Jen, was your question related to the website?
No, it was not, but I wasn't able to finish what I had to ask because I was cut off. So
Okay.
at the end of this meeting, if there's still time before 9, I'd like to be able to ask them.
Okay.
Thank
And then up next is Anand. Unmute yourself.
Yeah, I'm takes a little while, but thank you. Okay, couple of things. So we've actually had a request from El Rapa to come and do a presentation. And so the Public Health and Safety Committee would like to put it to the board and ask if it would be okay if we arrange to have one of the members from El Rapa to come and do a presentation. And I'm making that as a motion.
Can you explain who El Rapa is?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, I'll be
Thank you.
happy to do that. So it's Lane Regional Air Protection Agency, and they have air monitors all around Eugene. There's one over by the Peterson Park Barn. There's one out by Amazon by the university. And there's also some smaller ones kind of scattered around that kind of join together to let us know what the air quality is in the area. And I got to tell you, what with the forest fires, that's become an increasingly important issue. A few years back, I was kind of deep into it with them because I was very concerned about some of the effluent that was coming off of the oil refinery around here, and it was really bad. A lot of that has improved, fortunately, but nonetheless, somebody from the Lane Regional Air Protection Agency would very much like to do a presentation. Yeah, that's they want to update people as to some of the programs that they have. It looks like Stephen would like to add something there.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I second that motion.
As I was explaining to the health and safety, the LRAPA would particularly like to clue us into the new complaint-driven system that they have. Periodically, we get weird smells, and it's a way for us to immediately interact with LRAPA so that they can follow up with what we're smelling in the neighborhood. Like when the wind is in a particular direction, and they came to speak to a general meeting. This would be to a general meeting when they
Right.
resume. They came to a general meeting 3 or 4 years ago, and this is like a repeat visit with it to explain their new program. So how we can be citizen monitors of our own air, which is like a good way for an agency to go.
Yes.
Not my toilet.
That's classic. Doesn't matter. It'll remain a mystery, and good
It
thing.
will.
That's hilarious.
I'm gonna, so
We all
Stephen,
gotta
were you
go
finished?
sometimes.
Stephen, oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, we were just, the Health and Safety Committee wanted to get the board's okay to work with Doriandra on timing in future meetings for a slot for them to come and speak with a general meeting. So that would presumably be in the fall when general meetings resume. So if the board is okay with it, then we'll do the legwork.
Ta-da.
Thank you, Dan.
Wonderful. I'll second that motion. I think that's a great idea.
And all those for? Anybody against?
I'm for.
Yay.
All right, that motion passes.
Thank you kindly.
Okay, if I'm still up, I've got one more.
You do have
Hopefully-
one more.
Hopefully, this is the last time we have to go through this. So revised, hopefully final version of the motion to have the WCC's Public Health and Safety Committee, the PHSC, will administer the OHA housing grant, including managing the funds, reports, contracts, and operations. The PHSC will make periodic reports to the board.
I would love to second your motion.
Woohoo!
And also I will talk with you offline about how I as treasurer can interface with you and we can make this work smoothly.
Oh, please, by all means. Thank you very much.
All right, and to vote?
Dee-dee-dee-dee-dee.
And those against?
Oh, very cool.
And those abstaining? Okay.
Did you just vote against your own motion, Dennis?
Yeah, Dennis, it looked like you voted against the motion.
Or is that a latency issue? Oh, okay.
I'm scratching my head, Ian. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, and the motion passes. So the Public Health and Safety Committee will be taking care of the housing grant for us. Thank you guys
Thank
for
you.
taking that one on.
Yep.
And let's see, now it is Dan. Where are you, Dan? There you go. You have an update about our displacement, and I've got a little bit of info for you too.
I am not sure if you're meaning to speak to me about that because that's something I'm unaware of.
That's about the Head Start.
Oh, okay. Well, I can give you the up-to-date information then. I traded emails with Annie, Annie Soto, who is the head of Head Start in Lane County. And once again, they want to continue to talk. They are looking for, and I wish I could bring this stuff up. I'm not very savvy computer-wise, but the emails I traded with her today were that they wanted to talk to their council about what we were, I guess to make it a short story, that what I had been told was that we have access to that room and the WCC community room in perpetuity. And they said that they thought that, and this is that there were no finite details about how we are able to access that place right now. They're looking into their legal counsel. They don't seem to be averse to us using the room, but there's no finite details about whether we actually own the room anymore or not. I suggested the word perpetuity, and they said that the ownership might have changed hands. And so they're looking into it on their end. I don't want to go legal on our end if we don't have to. I'd like to hear from her again. But that's all I have for right now.
Go ahead, Dennis. There's somebody who is unmuted.
I think
Please
it's
mute yourself.
Margaret.
It's Brad's voice, I think.
Oh,
Dan, I'm just curious, has the WCC been able to ferret out any information that would bolster the legal claim that the organization has to that room? Like, my understanding is that that was built by the WCC from a federal block grant in the late 70s, I think, something like that. Is there any kind of a record of any of that business?
That I have not seen, but she suggested that that federal block grant today, when I emailed back and forth with her, was what she is going to refer to. I wish I could draw these things up, and if you guys would give me a few moments to access my email, which once again, I am not
while you do that, let me just tell you that I found out that those are two separate addresses. So the school itself and that building has its own address.
Yeah.
One of the things that I went for a walk, and right behind the building, it has our big poster that says WCC. Do you feel like it's time to maybe get our attorney involved with this? Go ahead, Dan.
I don't think it's quite time for us to get our attorney involved unless we are ready to take that building back with some substantive purpose in mind, considering that we have the mission and other entities that are willing to work with us and for us, but that is our physical address, which it still shows on our Whiteaker Community Council website. I think it's important, and I outlaid that very explicitly on my emails, that as a nonprofit, that's our address, and that we need that to be reflected as such. She did, and I'm sorry I don't have those materials at hand, brought up two humans. And if you give me a moment, I will go and research those and then come back to you all, that were part and parcel of that discussion. There's no paperwork that I've been able to find anywhere. And I saw yours, what you relayed to me, Dilenia, a few days ago regarding the physical address of that building, but that still doesn't give anything substantive about who owns the building and who owns it now. It might be a 4J issue. I'm not sure. So I can keep working on that with Annie and Charlene at Head Start. Charlene is not my go-to. Annie seems to be a little bit more of a fountain of information, but regardless, they don't have anything to report right now.
Dennis, I think I saw your hand up first.
Okay, just quickly, Dan, I've been thinking about this deeply, and I've had dealings with Charlene in the past, and I was the contact with her for the years when they were being difficult about letting us into the Whiteaker School for very large meetings, and then into our own building. And so it occurs to me that if they want to be difficult about it, I mean, we're a nonprofit. They have a board of directors. We have a board of directors. Charlene and the people, the functionaries who are obstructing, are employees. And if we simply hit the board of directors and just start ringing them, cold call them, talk, hey, how you doing? Hey, I'm the WCC, you know, I'm the vice chair of the WCC. You know, we have this issue, and being nonprofits, you know, you have to, you know, talk them up and chat them up, right? But I would bet that their board of directors, when they understand what's at stake and what's really going on, the board of directors may turn around to Charlotte and say, hey, look, just do it. So that's an angle.
Andrew, did you have something?
Yeah, I guess I can't stress how important I feel it is to find whatever contractual language, or if you know when those block grants happened, we need to track down that language, because essentially we have a legal interest in a property. And I believe very strongly that we need to assert that, not that we need to like go over there and like physically be present, but that we need to assert, not like in a let's get our attorney involved and talk about doing something way, but we need to do our research, and we should have that prepared. Because as a board, one thing I think we're charged with is to really watch out for the organization and our long-term interests. And I believe very strongly it's in our long-term interest not to quietly cede something that previous boards, I don't want to say built, they didn't build it, but they got us an interest in that. And if we're going to cede that, we should do it very deliberately and not because we can't find paperwork. So yeah, I don't know how I can help, but I think it's really important that we continue to pursue this issue and not just kind of let it slide. We have a responsibility to the organization. I view this pretty strongly. If we have effectively an easement on a property, that's worth something, and we need to keep it.
Thank you, Andrew. Jen, did you have something?
Yes, thank you. I concur with both Dennis and Andrew. And we need to do our homework. And something that comes to mind is whether we can find out information from the city, and for example, maybe property taxes, because they know who the money's coming from. And there's maybe other departments that we can go to find out literally who that belongs to.
I've already checked with the tax departments, and they're paying the taxes. So, I mean, that's not, we need to find out like the other stuff. Dennis?
I'd like to suggest that, I mean, if you go down to buildings and codes and all of that, and you look for any building permits back into the 70s, late 70s, early 80s, building permits for that address, the address of the Whiteaker School, but more specifically, the address of our room, and I've forgotten, what is it, 12 North?
21 North Jackson.
There you go. Look up for any building permits or activity in the city records going back into the 70s and 80s. And if we can just prove our assertions, I mean, Andrew's absolutely right. If we have essentially ammunition, you know, when we go to say, hey, look, you know, we're getting tired, you got to do something about this, then that should work. But we got to have the info. That would be very helpful.
Jen, did you want to, I'm sorry, I cut you off. What were you saying?
I was trying to say that there are maybe other departments that can identify that physical location on Jackson, other than the city taxes. There has to be other departments to put the pieces together that the city holds. Thank you.
Go ahead, Andrew.
Yeah, I was just gonna say the property tax records and I think even the building codes are not the right place to start looking, right? Like if this was paid for through community development block grants, that's going to be in the community development block grant agreements, right? It's not going to be, we don't actually have an ownership in the building, but we do have rights. We essentially have like an easement on the building through some other legal document. And so Dan, let's work offline and maybe I can help you find, because I work with some of the federal money sometimes professionally. And so maybe I might be of use, but it's going to be in our grant agreements or something like that. There's got to be paperwork somewhere. It's not in the tax records because we don't pay taxes. We effectively have an easement on that property, but that's legally enforceable and irrevocable. And we don't want to give that up.
Thank you, Andrew. Oh, it looks like we are ahead of schedule.
Dilenia,
Yes.
a title search might also help. So Andrew, title search might also help,
And thank you, Andrew.
because those will show easements.
Thank you, Thea. And since we are a little bit ahead of schedule, Jen, did you want to ask the questions that you had before?
Yes, I was curious when you were speaking to earlier, when Ian brought up all that stuff with grants and everything, and WCAT. I wonder how many people are on that at WCAT, and would it be possible for us to see what they have chosen for the artwork for the streets? And
Everybody was sent a flyer. You should have received the first flyer. That was the artwork that was on it.
oh goodness, I just don't recall receiving it.
Yeah.
So,
And WCAT also meets on Monday night, I believe Monday nights, and anybody can join their meeting. Right now, Gail is the board member who is going to their meetings. So she would be the contact and she can give you the information for the meeting. Are there any other questions? Okay. So some future topics, Anand and I were talking about, one of the things that we wanted to do was maybe bring a mental health provider in. Is that what you were talking about? Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yes,
for
thank you very much.
September's meeting?
Right, so the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, as well as pretty much every other medical professional, has noted that the pandemic has put everybody under a whole lot of mental strain. We 2-3 years ago had representatives from various mental health services come by at a general meeting and explain what their services were and how to apply for them. We would like to do something very similar again sometime when it works well in a general meeting, so people know how to access those services. That's the short of it.
Thank you. So that was one of the things that we were thinking about bringing in our September general meeting, and I keep losing my pen. And that kind of goes along with Stephen. I feel like you had something for that. No, never mind. Wrong notes. All right. Okay. Anything further? Does anybody have anything else to say? No? All right, everybody. I'd like
Thank
to
you,
Give you a
everybody.
park and safety update.
Oh, what'd you say, Thea?
I can give you a park and safety update if you want it as a board.
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay, so we have bike patrols and park ambassadors coming throughout our neighborhood. We are having a large amount of people who are getting some bad drugs on our streets right now. And I will be meeting with Chief Skinner next Friday to discuss this and some more help. But basically they have been patrolling through our parks, and then the NSOs, which are neighborhood service officers, they are working with Doug Mozan's team, which is EPD officers. And I've forgotten their 3 initials. I apologize. I think they're HSOs, Housing Resource Officers or something like that. Anyway, they're working together to help many of our unhoused that are on the street right now get into, all the safe sleep sites are full, okay? So they are sending them out to 99 to get that overnight care, but they're also working with Cheryl at the Mission for nightly stays. So they're not just coming up and saying, sorry, you can't be here, there's nowhere to go. They're trying to get them resources. So they are all working together now. So we're moving in a direction of trying to get people into housing, into mental health services, into chemical programs, and EPD and park ambassadors and bike officers are all working together. So that's my latest. And then I sent on some things to the traffic committee because Officer Scott Dillon who was here a month or so, I don't remember. It's scary that it's already June. He is they're doing spot checks in our neighborhood. They are writing tickets. They heard us when we spoke that we didn't want just hand slaps. And he wants to work with the traffic safety committee. So I just sent it to all of you on helping on traffic calming, because he says we need more permanent solutions on First, Fifth, and Monroe. They will back us up. So I think that's it. If there's not any questions.
Actually, I have a question.
Go ahead.
Do you know if any of those people in the parks and providing services and whatnot, do you know if they're carrying Narcan?
I don't know, but they are our officers. They're all EPD officers.
Okay, yeah, they probably are
So
there.
they carry it on them, and I think our park ambassadors also carry it on them.
Very good, thank you.
And they're on bicycles now.
Right.
You might want to also let them know that I've been finding, because I also clean outside of our dispensary, and in that little alley behind us, I've been finding a lot of like drug paraphernalia back there.
Okay,
That's
and
not marijuana.
we can reach out to HIV Alliance and they will do needle cleanups. So if you have a business that's experiencing high needle volume behind their business, HIV Alliance will come do needle pickups.
Okay. But you might want to let anybody else know, like, we have cameras and we're watching you anyway. I'll find it. No, I'm just kidding. And then I do want to finish off before everybody leaves. I just want to say thank you to Ian for everything that you've done, putting up with this crazy group. We really appreciate you, and you've got my number. We need to go have some coffee. And did you want to finish off and say something?
Yeah, I just wanted to say thanks so much. The last pandemic plus of WCC work has been really deeply fulfilling, and yeah, just what an experience, and one of a lifetime truly, to be able to grow with y'all and to be in different positions on this board. And I'm really humbled to have been able to share this experience with y'all. And I'm also elated to not talk about WCC stuff. And I desperately want a break. And I apologize if I've offended anyone via email or via phone or via text by saying no. But really, I think that y'all understand that I need a break. And so I'm going to be working with Dilenia and Andrew and Doriandra, like I said, to be able to kind of exit out. I've already unsubscribed myself from the Google groups. And if y'all could not include me on emails, I'd really appreciate it. And also no more texts and phone calls too. And yeah, please don't take offense if I choose not to respond or if I just say politely no. It's part of my exit out, and I have the utmost faith and confidence. And, yeah, just a sense of camaraderie with y'all, and know that, you're going to serve our community with the best interest of our community. And I feel like we've really built something which is going to last the next 50 years. You know, we're only here because of the unnamed boards and cats, of course, that have come before us. And I know that someday, many decades from now, there'll be board members possibly in some sort of hologram apparatus, not a Zoom call, just like we're doing right now, not talking about the pandemic that they're in, but rather reflecting on how we lived through those experiences at all and how they worked really hard to transcend them. So I'm just, yeah, really overjoyed that y'all are choosing to continue to serve. And I hope you understand my earnest desire to step back and retire, and to see y'all possibly for barbecues or for walks around the neighborhood or for coffee, and not talk about WCC stuff. Please, not talk about WCC stuff, because yeah, I've enjoyed y'all immensely and just wish you the best and hope that we can continue to be neighbors and continue to have lots of laughs and great times ahead. The summer is my favorite in Eugene, so thank you all so much. It's really meant a lot.
Well, thank you, everybody, and you all have a good night.
Gorgeous Mancoon, Andrew.
Thanks. Good ID.
That is a gorgeous cat.
Yeah, he's a big boy. I love him.
What does he weigh?
Actually, only about 16 pounds.
Oh, it's all hair.
Oh,
Yeah, well, he's 29 inches long with another 19 inches of tail.
Oh my gosh.
So he's a